Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of FX Weekly. So we're going to be going over our normal FX reviews of what we plan on seeing in the FX markets. We're also going to be going over some of the indices as well. And further to that, we're going to be covering a very, very exciting IPO, which is Bumble. There's been a lot of talk about this, and I think that we definitely have to discuss what is going on with the Bumble IPO. So Bumble, the dating app as we all know it, it's got over 42 million active users from over 150 countries. The company valuation that we're seeing at the moment is absolutely huge as well. It's currently looking in between $6 and $8 billion as the valuation for the IPO. What's awesome about this IPO is that the lead underwriters are both Goldman Sachs and also Citigroup. So real big household names there back in the IPO there for Bumble. So interesting about Bumble, if you guys don't know or girls don't know how it works, the women actually have to initiate the chat first on the Bumble app, which has kind of given this whole new demographic, which is completely different to Tinder. So once the woman has reached out to the man, they only have 24 hours to reply back before it cancels the connection and you have to move on and find someone else to swipe for you if you're a guy. So lucky for women, they get to pick whoever they want, and guys, you're just trying to look for the connections that are connecting with you. Bumble founder Whitney Hurd associates such a feature with Me Too and Time's Up movement and speaks out against sexual harassment and gender discrimination. The Bumble app is monetized through a freemium model. The main functionality of the service is free, and you need paid subscriptions or in-app purchase to access premium features. Premium features increase the likelihood and speed of developing relationships. We all know this sort of model. It gets a lot of people onto the platform, and then those individuals go and upgrade. So 4.2 million users are already using that paid service. So guys, obviously with the Bumble IPO, we teamed up with no other than freedom24.com, where you can participate in the IPO, just like some of you guys went and did with the Airbnb IPO, with Dash as well as some of the other ones. So guys, it's quite simple. Just like before, you can buy shares at the primary price before the start of trading and then sell after the listing on the exchange after the expiration of the lockup period. In the case, price can rise by lots of percentages. We saw this with Airbnb going from $60 odd all the way up to $200. And I believe that's actually coming to its lockup period ending as well. So you can do this with the IPO, and you can do it from $2,000 starting in your account. We all know who Freedom Finance is, obviously, guys, but don't forget that these guys have allowed access and participation to over 180 IPOs, which is absolutely insane. At the same time, the average return on those IPOs recommended by the company's analysts at the end of the lockup period was 72%, which is crazy. We can see that as well, actually, with proof in the pudding from Airbnb and just how far that has moved from where it was at the IPO price. That's a huge comparison there. That's completely different if you was to enter at the public market during that period, which was only 3%. So that's very interesting to know that. As we know, once you get involved with IPOs, we've seen the facts and the figures of how much IPOs can move. Obviously, there is risk involved with trading. We understand that, but this is a great way to start investing into IPOs and getting involved at that institutional level, which is quite rare for retail traders. Applications for participations are accepted until February the 9th, guys, okay? So we don't have long to get involved with the Bumble IPO. To do this, all you need to do is open an investment account with them, replenish it with at least $2,000 and then submit an order to buy the shares in the client's office by selecting the company's ticker BMBL and indicating the desired participation amount. Obviously, guys, take your time, get used to using the platform, and hopefully see you on the Bumble IPO. Okay guys, so welcome back to FX forecasting. We're going to go straight in on currencies. We're going to be looking at euro against the US dollar against the daily. From our first forecast video back of 2021 last week, we was talking about this level here and how we expect price to break on that level. We can also see price sitting off of these previous highs currently, which will be interesting to see if we see that bounce. So we might see a bounce come back up before we see a continued move to the downside. That is one of the risks. We may actually see price continue to sell off through this level, but it's just something to bear in mind for your trading week to come. We are getting a little bit of a bounce at this moment in time whilst we're filming this, so we are starting to see it come back up again. So we may see it come back to the moving averages before it continues its downside move. So when we look at the 15 minutes over here, we can see that we've still got some lovely sort of cyclical behavior coming in. We've got this, the lower highs forming and very much in line with cluster. This is actually, since I took this print screen, it's actually just blasted up to R1 here, which is probably more in line with a good pullback, I would say, with previous price, as well as R1 showing rejection on these previous low levels that we can see coming through here. So we are seeing this motion continue to form and come to the downside. Bearing in mind, going into the week, I would say that let's keep an eye on this 1.2 level. If we see price break above this 1.2 level, I would say that that's the pullback we're seeing on the daily, with price moving slightly higher before the continuation in the sell. Definitely maximize using the cluster 2.0 algo. As you can see here, we've got 3 strong positions. In this fourth one, we have price come slightly higher. So 3 wins, 1 loss, I would say, on trading that on the cluster algo. So very cyclical, nice and predictable turns to the downside. Nice, lovely. We like it. So looking for shorts on Euro US dollar this week. Pound against the US dollar daily, we are seeing price move up, and again, I'm just highlighting those levels there. You can see actually some of my positions from where I was shorting from all the negative news that was coming out around Brexit, which was lovely. But now we've got a confirmed move to the upside. We can see that quite well respected off of the 21 moving average. We can see that we've got these pin bars as well, constantly rejecting that green moving average, and we just expect price to continue moving up. There has obviously been great progression that I'm sure Elliot was going to cover about some of the new trade deal talks that are coming out for the UK and some of the Asian countries of what we're looking to do there on that front with the trade deals. So this is again just causing a nice continuous upwards move. Although, believe it or not, on the 15 minutes, it is really choppy. So not looking to trade pound US dollar 15 minutes, looking to trade more on the hourly. So on the hourly, you can see here, these are the sort of levels that we've got in play. We've got 2 sort of trend lines that are flowing up here quite nicely with multiple rejections and a bit of a deeper retrace happening on this, over the last sort of couple of days this week. Got some nice movement to the upside, and again we've got a solid resistance level. So we're expecting price to come back up before coming back to down to one of these trend lines or within this zone before looking to buy and follow the movement back to the upside. So staying away from the 15 minutes. It's quite choppy on the 5 and 15 minutes. So sticking to the hourly trades is what we're looking at over this coming week. So pound US dollar, looking for buys. Opposite to Euro US dollar as we're looking for shorts on Euro US dollar. So I always like doing this. This was last week's previous that we had of US dollar yen. We spoke quite clearly about our prediction about how there's going to be a little bit more US dollar strength coming into this currency, and we've exactly seen that. Which is nice to know that our predictions and forecasts were right. So this was the previous chart from our last forecast, and this is exactly what's happened since. So you can see if I go back again, we had that initial burst up through here, through taking this high out on the 2 candles, and then ever since then, you can see how price has just exploded back up. So we are at a very interesting point this week. So we'll probably be staying away from US dollar against Japanese yen until we see a firm break of this 105.5 level, because we see price rejecting off of this previous highs for now. we may see price move slightly higher, break through that retest and move up. So it's just something to be cautious of that 105.5 level. We are with a bullish bias of buying, and we are happy to trade on the 15 minutes time frame. But just to be cautious of this level, we may break through it really quickly, depending how Monday pans out. But we can see our overall outlook here on the position is been very nice with the buys coming into place in 15 minutes. You can see here that pivot point rejection. We've also got bullish hidden divergence there, a cluster signal, price running up to R1, quite nice and predictable. Another cluster over midnight, followed by another one there rejecting the pivot point, and price moving up the next day, actually breaking through R1, R2, and R3. And then this has been an amazing move where price came down to the pivot point, rejected that, and we have seen price continue higher. So this is obviously Friday, and what a great rejection off of that UK pivot point. So absolutely fantastic. So we are bullish on US dollar against the Japanese yen. We are bullish on pound dollar, and we are bearish on euro against the US dollar. I'm going to hand over to Elliot now. He's going to run through some of the fundamentals of what's been going on in the market.
So yeah, this week we've seen, again, it's been quite a busy week. You know, after last week, we discussed about the heavy sell-off we saw in indices. So that was sort of the story of last week. This week, it didn't last very long at all. They were very short-lived, and that's why I guess they're called shorts, right? So this week we've seen S&P and Nasdaq hit fresh highs on Friday. So Nasdaq hit 13,600, just above, and S&P close to hitting 3,900. DAX and Dow also very close to making all-time highs. However, Ftse 100, disappointingly, is not recovering at the same pace. It's still way off last week's highs, last week's levels, and miles away, still 400 odd points away from the high we saw in January of around just over 6,900. It's an interesting one, and not something I can particularly put my finger on. All the news we're seeing out of the UK, it's not necessarily any worse than where we're seeing the rest of the world. Yes, the UK has been more hardly hit by coronavirus in terms of death per person. And obviously, you know, we've been in this lockdown now for, well, feels like forever. However, you know, things are looking up. AstraZeneca or Oxford University came out today and said that the Kent strain, that their vaccine is as effective, equally as effective against that strain compared to the others. So that's good news. You know, the vaccination, it did take a bit of a drop off, but it looks to be back on track now. So it's a bit of a strange one. We've also seen in the news towards the end of this week that the talk of the lockdowns now being eased over the next month or so. Seeing a bit more news on that. So starting with schools and then outdoor sports. So, you know, it all does seem to be, you know, we've got spring around the corner. So it's a bit of a strange one that the Ftse 100 is not recovering. We're also seeing oil hit $60 a barrel. Obviously, a lot of the heavily weighted UK Ftse 100 companies are, you know, in mining and oil, like, you know, the big oil, Royal Dutch Shell, BP. So you'd expect them to be recovering and pushing the Ftse 100 up. It's a bit of a strange one. I can't really put my finger on it. Obviously, we had the Bank of England interest rate decision this week. There was a bit of talk around negative rates possibly happening. However, personally, I don't see that with vaccinations continuing. I think it would be a mistake to go negative on rates. The Bank of England warned banks to start preparing for it just in case. In the US, we saw obviously Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion relief fund that got voted through on the Senate. So 51-50. As we know, the Senate in the US is 50-50 split between Democrats and Republicans, with the VP taking that final vote. So she exercised her power there to win that vote, 51-50. However, the talk is coming out that there will be some slight changes based on the Central Democrats' views. So they're more towards the Republicans, but obviously Democrats, and they want a slightly weakened down version of the current deal. We also saw NFP come out on Friday with January jobs report 49,000 jobs added versus the 105,000 expected. Sort of adds a bit of emphasis on Joe Biden's, it is a required relief plan. If NFP for January is really high, better than expected, then, that relief plan may have been watered down some more, because obviously if we'd seen a bigger rebound in those jobs added. Unemployment rate did drop to 6.3% from 6.7% expected. So again, good news there from the US. And like I say, the indices are flying this week. I've seen record levels on S&P and NASDAQ. We also spoke quite a bit about the Reddit, GME and AMC stocks. This week, they've absolutely tumbled. GME closed down $50 on Thursday. AMC was down around $7. So, I mean, for now, it looks like that sort of bubble has burst. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens on the back of that, if there's any sort of further developments. Okay, so yeah, looking at the charts, I mean, this is Dow here. So this was taken on Friday afternoon, like I say, close to the all-time highs. I mean, that recovery is just from the start of this week. You can see it opened down, gap down on Sunday evening, hit sort of 29,800 and saw the sharp bounce on Monday, pretty much all the way through to Wednesday afternoon. We then saw a bit of consolidation at around between 30,600 and 30,800. However, Thursday afternoon came, the US market opened, and it pretty much just rocketed its way back up to sort of the levels we are at now on Friday afternoon. Be interesting to see if this market, this rally continues and it does print fresh highs on Friday afternoon, or we might see a bit of a retracement, a bit of a pullback on Friday afternoon, as a lot of people have made money and they start to take profit off the table. Just see what happens. I think a bit of a pullback is due after this strong rally over the week. However, it wouldn't surprise me if it just, now it's close to making all-time highs, we see another burst and then a pullback next week. So yeah, the picture, if we now look at Ftse 100, I mean, picture that in your head and then have a look at this. I mean, very different. We saw the lows again made on Sunday around that 6,300 level, which coincides with the December's low. However, whereas Dow, DAX, S&P, NASDAQ have all gone back above and made new all-time highs, the Ftse made a small recovery during the early part of the week, back up towards 6,550 level. However, then it's just gone sideways and it's just literally just sitting doing nothing at 6,500, which again, like I said, I don't really understand the reason behind that. So if anything, if you're bullish on the markets, the Ftse 100 could be a good value add over the other indices if, we do see a continued push up into the market and then Ftse 100 does start to play some catch up. Yeah, so we also spoke about Bitcoin last week. Last Friday, we saw a massive spike up to 38,000 after Elon Musk updated his Twitter profile to just have Bitcoin in it. He's been tweeting a bit about Dogecoin this week. Saw an interview about him saying it's all a bit of a joke. However, obviously we've seen the moves in Dogecoin. And again, so Bitcoin came back down to that sort of 32,500 level. It was treating that support and then sort of broke through that level back down to 30,000 and then was using that as resistance. And then obviously we saw Elon Musk's tweet last week that took Bitcoin back up to 38,000. So then come back down to that 32,500 level, use it as support, and now it's back around 38,000. I think if we see a break above that, we're going to very quickly then see $42,000 and, all-time highs again. So yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on, for those people that would like to trade Bitcoin intraday. I also saw in the introduction, just want to talk a bit about Bumble and the upcoming IPO. So the plans are to start trading on the 11th of Feb. So obviously you need to get in the IPO before that. It's quite an interesting time to IPO for them. It's quite funny, quite clever. This is obviously the week before Valentine's Day on the 14th of Feb. Yeah. Whether that's going to help push it up, I don't know. They're looking to sell just under 35 million shares and their target price is between $28 and $30, which will give it around a $6.5 billion valuation, like Sam mentioned. However, obviously, like we've seen with the other ones, like Airbnb, DoorDash, the AI company, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they were, their target prices and where they actually listed at were two very different things. So it'd be interesting to see, if Bumble does follow suit. It's quite an interesting proposition. So obviously, I haven't used it myself, but it's a dating app where women make the first move, like Sam said in the intro. So, very.
To be honest with you, Dash, just looking at Dash actually dropped from the 180 open price. I can't remember what the IPO was, to be honest with you. It dropped to the one.
The target thing. I think it was a lot lower. I remember it did rally up, Matt.
It went all the way down to 140, then it went up to 260, and it's now back at 180 from where it opened at.
I mean, they are volatile. If you catch them right, then you can obviously make a lot of money. But if you start buying at the top, you can lose money very fast. Yeah, so back to Bumble. Yeah, so obviously different differentiation over sort of Tinder. This is, more focused on the women. So they actually have more women on the platform than men, I believe. And they're also looking to diversify more. So they've got two other parts of the platform, Bumble BFF, which is for like friends, and then Bumble Biz, which is like a networking for professionals. So focusing on like going down more of a female social networking app to sort of grow that side. So similar to what you could use Facebook for, but Facebook/LinkedIn, but primarily again focused on women. So I think this gives them plenty of room for growth. And we've seen Facebook recently enter sort of trying to get into the dating scene where they're a step ahead of Facebook, and then in part trying to take that sort of social network aspect of it, but focus themselves on women. Yeah. So again, they differentiated themselves from Tinder. So looking at the numbers, quite impressive growth. Obviously, it slowed this year. I mean, it's first 9 months of this year, of 2020. Sorry, it's obviously understandable with everything that was going on, lockdowns and stuff. You couldn't really. I know there were people going and meeting on dates, but obviously the number of people that were doing that were heavily reduced. However, the revenue actually still increased year on year compared to 2019. They did make a loss for the first 9 months after making a sizable profit in 2019. However, their earnings before interest grew 24% year on year. So, I mean, they look like they've got some good growth going on. They have actually turned a profit, unlike some of these other tech companies that have just made losses year on year, and they're solely valued on their potential earnings, potential profit they're going to make in their future. Yeah, so it's interesting. Obviously, they're not just copying Tinder. They're not, trying to jump on that bandwagon. They're doing things differently, and obviously giving women the control, which I feel like is pretty normal anyway in terms of when it comes to dating and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's an interesting proposition, and they're looking, obviously, like I say, trying to differentiate themselves more, not just be a dating app, and grow themselves as more than that, and more of a female social networking. So quite interesting. Yeah, and obviously, with what we've seen with IPOs so far, towards the end of last year and this year, I mean, it's, it could be another rocket.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've seen a lot of IPOs getting a lot of attraction. I think this is going to be one that does just that as well. So definitely one to keep an eye out on.
So yeah, obviously upcoming next week, on top of the Bumble IPO, we've got see if that Biden relief package gets through. Expecting again, like we said, small amendments to the current deal expected to get passed through maybe next week. We've also got coming out of the US's consumer price index, so inflation. And obviously we saw Sam's technicals and the charts we've seen. Other than cable, we've seen mostly dollar strength. So, something to watch out for. If we see a high print on CPI, higher than expected, we may see this reflation trade, as they're calling it, pick up a bit more steam as, more US dollar strength if the US is expected to increase or start increasing interest rates before, I think the Fed said 2024, something ridiculous. So, which then again could knock on some more gold weakness. Obviously, we saw, gold break through that 1830 level earlier this week, sitting around 1795. Will it hold that 1765 December low level? Will it break back through? So, quite an interesting week ahead maybe for gold. Will we see another strong bounce? And will we see more dollar strength? We've also got UK GDP. How far to the UK, we'll find out. And if you're a Kiwi trader, we've got New Zealand interest rate decision, I believe, on Tuesday night. So yeah, that's it really. That's
So we've got loads of stuff that's happening, obviously. So guys, making sure we're keeping aware on those FX pairs. Euro US dollar expecting price to move to the downside. Pound US dollar looking for continuation and move to the upside. And oh look, he's taking his shades off.
Eyes back.
He's got eyes. Pound US dollar moving to the upside, and US dollar yen keeping an eye on that upwards movement that we're seeing at this moment in time. Guys, if you enjoy our weekly FX stock, I suppose IPO and cryptos at this moment in time, going through absolutely everything. If you find this valuable to your weekly trading, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and get in the comments, show your support, and we'll see you in the next episode, guys. Take care.